and the official opening remarks from the Secretariat. I just want to make sure that the DSGs are online. I don't seem to see the DSG online. But nevertheless, I really welcome everyone that has already joined. Thank you so much.
DSG is joining. Let us give her 2 minutes, Geoffrey, before we start.
Okay. Okay.
I'm in contact with her.
Great. So I recognize the presence of Dr. Marian. Please, you're welcome, Doctor. Good to have you on this webinar. You're most welcome. And a few people that I know, thanks for joining Mr. Emmanuel from the Central Corridor. You're most welcome, sir. Good to see Mr. Dennis from the Northern Corridor. Thank you, sir. Waiting to see if Miss Pauline is on the call. Miss Pauline, are you on the call by any chance?
Yes, I am in the call.
Pauline? Oh, I think I can see you, Pauline. Can you just say hi to us?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Pauline.
Your mic is quite faint. We cannot hear you. If you could just maybe get close to your mic.
Okay, apologies for that. My name is Pauline Mukwalu. I am here to represent our acting CEO, Mr. Agayo Gambi from the Shipper Council of Eastern Africa.
Asante sana, Pauline. Karibu sana. But we encourage you to, during your presentation, to get closer to your mic. It seems a bit faint still. I recognize the presence of Dr. Samuel Nyantahi. Karibu sana, Daktari.
Also, we have our board director, Wagogo, on call, Geoffrey.
Oh, my apologies, my board director. Karibu sana, Mr. Wagogo. Thank you for making time and hope to see and hear from you.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, thank you for the invitation.
Asante sana, karibu sana, Daktari. Director, sorry. And many others. You're welcome, Elia Moleka from the Tanzania Small Scale Industries. Thank you for making time. And many others that have already joined. We're waiting for the, as mentioned, waiting for the speakers and opening remarks from the officials from the Secretariat. As and when they arrive, we shall definitely begin our webinar. So we really request for your patience as we wait for those officials. They'll be joining shortly. I wanted to know whether Mr. Jonathan Sesanga has also joined. So Jonathan, are you on the call from the ES Secretariat? I think we have to wait for a few minutes for people from the ES Secretariat. And please, if you are presenting and you have a presentation that you haven't shared with us, kindly do so to be able to roll the slides for you. But if you really want to roll the slides for yourself, good enough, but we really want to have the presentations so that we also share with the participants at the end of the webinar. So I request you to all share your presentations. Thanks, Emmanuel, Pauline, and Jonathan. We're still waiting for Dennis to also share your presentation as well, sir. It'd be great if you share.
Geoffrey, I think we can start. DSG is joining.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, CEO, and thank you everyone for making a time to attend this webinar and honoring our invitation to discuss one of the most important topics in the region that facilitates trade, and that is nothing but the performance of our trade and transport corridors. As you're aware, these corridors really facilitate movement of goods, movement of people, movement of services, and the efficiency of these ports is very important for our regional integration and connecting our partner states for matters of trade and investment. So my name is Geoffrey Kamanzi. I'm the policy manager in charge of trade and services at the East African Business Council, and the transport and logistics falls under the docket that I handle at the EABC Secretariat. I welcome everyone to this call, to this virtual meeting, and I look forward to most of the participation. Just to set the ground rules of this webinar, we'll request that if you are not speaking, kindly mute your microphone to enable others present or make their presentations. And you can only unmute while speaking, and kindly, for purposes of internet connection, you can put off your video if you are not contributing or making inputs to our webinar. Please make sure that we contribute to the meeting goals. Let's remain within the context of this webinar and the topics of corridor performance. And other than that, kindly keep your contributions for further interrogation. I request that we keep on point and on time. We are here until 13:45. We want to make sure that we remain within your time and make sure you use the time allocated to you appropriately. Let's focus on this topic and relevant to this area of discussion. And I request and indulge with you to keep the chat room interactive. Where you're not given a microphone, kindly leave your comments or your questions or your input on the chat. We'll definitely throw them back to the speakers who you want to address your question or input to. For purpose of reporting and future archives, we are going to be recording this webinar so that we can refer to it if and when necessary. The reports and presentations shall be shared, and request that you send your email addresses to the chat room. My colleagues and back end shall collect your email addresses and share with you the presentations and any material that will be presented here. Then that notwithstanding, sir, with your indulgence, I request that probably you come in and give your official welcome remarks, after which then you shall invite the official that is doing the official opening remarks for this webinar. Thank you very much. Looking forward to the discussion. Karibu sana, ED.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Geoffrey. Good morning. Habari za asubuhi. Bonjour. Allow me to start by recognizing and appreciating the Honorable Acting Secretary General for East African Community, Honorable Annette Semuemba, who has joined us and who will be delivering the opening remarks. Let me also recognize our goodwill ambassador, Dr. Marian Sebunya, Chairperson, National Logistics Platform Uganda, John Mathenga, Managing Director, Via Service Limited, my brother Emmanuel Rutajengwa, who is the head Transport Policy Planning Central Corridor Transit Transport Facilitation Agency, Mr. Dennis Lewa Moganga, Director Private Sector Investment Promotion, Northern Corridor Transit and Transport Coordination Authority, Ms. Paulina Ukwalu, Policy Advocacy and Monitoring and Evaluation, the East African Shippers Council. All the participants who have joined this webinar, I've seen a number of our goodwill ambassador, our board director, Ruabogo, and I want to thank you for always supporting and providing insight on how best we can shape this region. So on behalf of the board and management of East African Business Council, I'm very delighted to welcome you to this important webinar organized by the East African Business Council today. We gather here virtually to dive deeper into pivotal role of transport corridor play in facilitating trade and economic growth in our region. And the webinar is focusing on performance of Central Corridor as well as Northern Corridor in terms of facilitating trade and investment within our region. We know that transport corridor are the lifeblood of our business. So their performance determines the ability of the competitiveness of our region. So, and we've seen the recent data that the corridor are doing very well in terms of reducing time and costs to do business. The statistics we have illustrate that on average, the port of Mombasa handles over 68% of the total combined throughput volume, while the port of Dar es Salaam handles the remaining 32% of the total corridor throughput. So the combined throughput of the two corridors is estimated at around 51.6 million tons per year, representing an annual growth of 3% compared to 2020 during the COVID time. So these numbers really indicate that we are recovering, we are rebounding very well in terms of the devastating impact of COVID and other global shocks. So the efficiency among our ports is commendable, but we need also to look at the port does not work in isolation. We need also to look at the border performance. And I'm happy that the DSG, current acting at the SG, last week he paid a courtesy call to all borders to appreciate and look at into how our borders also supporting the movement of goods and services across our region. So today's webinar aims to shed more light on these challenges, celebrate success initiative, and pave the way for collaborative strategies to improve corridor performance. So we'll hear and listen from our esteemed experts, guests, and other players in the sector to look at what can we do best in terms of improving the performance. I've been looking into the World Bank report, Connecting to Compete. And that report does assess the performance of corridors, the port infrastructure, the organizing, the logistics across countries. But it is so shocking that among 139 countries that are being assessed, the best performing country is Rwanda, and it ranks 76. Others are in 100. So we are not doing well. We are not doing well, and that is the reason that really there is a sense of urgency to look at how best can we organize our corridor, how best can we improve our performance at the port. Last week I was at the port of Dar es Salaam, and most of the importers from the port are complaining about the delays at the port. And you can even see them. Dr. Nyantai, who is a goodwill ambassador, can testify. You can see the ships that are really on the queue, a number of ships that can take even a week or more than a week in terms of being cleared. So our competitiveness is strongly hampered or hindered by inefficiency of our logistics performance. And when you look at that indicator by the World Bank, they look into the efficiency of clearance process, which entails the speed, simplicity, and predictability in terms of how generally that is critical, because the business are really concerned that it is unpredictable. When you look at the current standoff at the Busia border in terms of potato coming from Uganda to Kenya, and yet really the potatoes are wholly produced goods. They should not be subject to customs verification and others. It is taking a week to clear just one truck. So we need really to double our efforts. We need to see how agencies trade facilitation agencies double their work, they will double their efforts and do better. So also the indicator looks into the quality of trade and transport related infrastructure, ports, rails, roads, waterways, information. How do we leverage information technology with the view to facilitate trade and transport? So, and I know EAC, Trademark, and other development partners have invested heavily on one-stop border post and also a digital infrastructure. But are the agents able to take up those tasks to embrace digitization in our corridor performance? We looked also at the competence and the quality of logistics services, the transport operators, customs, brokers. Are they doing their work right? No, they are not doing their work right. So we need to really work on how these agencies are working, and I'm happy that Dr. Marian is here. They will share the insight. How do we bring these agencies together, and including the training and the capacity building for our brokers? So again, it is important that as stakeholders, we dive deeper into these issues with a view to facilitate trade, to enhance our competitiveness, and to develop our region and our continent we want, which is well articulated within the ESC protocol. The protocol is very clear. It should be private sector led. We must ensure that we generate the shared prosperity. With that, I want to really wish you a very fruitful deliberation, and allow me now invite the Acting Secretary General to deliver her opening remarks. Asanteni sana, God bless you all.
Thank you so much, CEO, for those very good welcome remarks and giving us the insights and the gist of why we're here and what we are going to tackle. Thank you very much, sir. I think you've ably set the scene, and therefore we can only have an official opening of this webinar by the DSG and Acting Secretary General. Honorable, please welcome to give your official opening remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Executive Director. Good morning, everyone that has joined this very important discussion. EABC, ED, and board members, distinguished delegates in your respective capacities, all protocols observed. It is my honor and pleasure to join you during this very important discussion. This is a critical discussion, as the region's performance can only improve if our corridors are efficient. I am therefore very grateful to EABC for undertaking this important initiative to bring us together to discuss our corridor performance and to be able to decide collectively what more needs to be done to make our region more competitive. I will focus mainly on the initiatives that have been undertaken by the ESC Secretariat, just so that as we have this discussion, we can also take into account the issues that are ongoing, initiatives that are ongoing, and then collectively utilize this information in terms of defining a vision for the future. I think it is very, very important that we reflect on what we would like our corridors to look like. And for me, that's the missing question. There are a number of interventions that have been undertaken by development partners, port improvements, border post improvements, by our governments to build roads, to ensure that we have the infrastructure in place to be able to move goods along these corridors. But what's the vision? Where do we want to go? We have seen reductions in time. We have seen reductions in cost. Are they sufficient? And I really hope that through this discussion, we can define that vision. And perhaps it's a challenge that I put on the table so that we are all focused towards that same vision, and that we can challenge ourselves and also be accountable to each other with respect to what each party needs to deliver. Now, with respect to initiatives from the ESC Secretariat has demonstrated a steadfast commitment to enhancing trade facilitation across partner states. And led by the Secretariat, there are a number of ongoing initiatives, some of which have been concluded and others still evolving. And I'll start with the single customs territory. This underlies the ES's dedication to harmonizing customs procedures, reducing border delays, and lowering trade costs for business. Already, the Executive Director has mentioned some of the results that have been delivered from these improvements in terms of the time and the cost across our 2 corridors. However, again, as we think about the vision, is this sufficient? I think we could do more. Arising from the single customs territory, there's been a number of benefits such as a single declaration, data exchange, visibility, and these have had an impact on our competitiveness. The one-stop border posts are evident of ES's efforts to streamline border clearance processes, enabling simultaneous clearance of goods and people at key border points. So far, 15 OSBPs have been constructed and operationalized across the region. However, as we just heard from the Executive Director, are these OSBPs delivering the gains that we anticipate? I visited the border post between Uganda and South Sudan at Elego and Nimule, and clearly I could see that a lot more needs to be done. I witnessed trucks that were stuck at the border for many, many days. Occasionally and continually, we see these issues raised by the private sector in the newspapers with respect to delays at border posts, many of which are OSBPs. So we would really be keen to hear what more can be done to improve OSBP operations. Further ESC interventions have prioritized infrastructure development to improve connectivity and efficiency within the region, allowing trade to be facilitated. You've talked about enhancements at ports, but there's more enhancement still needed. There are more OSBPs that will be constructed. The Northern Corridor Integration Project, spearheaded by the ESC, is focusing on upgrading roads, rails, and ports at critical transport routes like the Northern Corridor. The 256-kilometer multinational Kisumu, Kisian, Busia, Kakira, Malaba, Busita, Mabusia Expressway is set to start soon. The feasibility study is currently underway. Increased connectivity and efficiency for businesses in the corridor. These initiatives involve rehabilitation of the existing 2-lane single carriage to bitumen standards and the upgrading of the same into a 2-lane dual carriageway over a 104-kilometer stretch. All these are good developments, but with a growing region, we need to start thinking beyond 2-lane carriageways to carriageways with many lanes, some dedicated to trucks, so that we can really facilitate trade across our corridors. Technology adoption is ongoing, including smart gates, weighing motion initiatives to expedite movement of goods along the corridors and at the same time enhancing trade efficiency. We have electronic cargo monitoring, trade information portals. So all of these have been implemented. All of these have delivered results, but we still need to do more to enhance the performance of our corridors. I wish to inform you that our ESC heads of state will have a retreat on infrastructure development as part of the summit that will be coming up in November. And it is evident that these discussions need to filter through so that our heads of states can also support these processes through directives for resources to be allocated to continue to enhance our investments in infrastructure along the corridors. I therefore wish to emphasize the need to support and expand corridor initiatives, and I hope we have partners here during this discussion that could also listen and also commit more resources to support the region. I also expect that we can enhance collaboration between the public and the private sector. And I also hope we continue to focus on logistics within the region as a precursor to competitiveness, promoting trade and fostering economic development. With those few remarks, I really wish you fruitful deliberations during this discussion. I apologize that I will not be able to stay throughout the discussion, but I have members from the team that have joined you, and we'll also share more information on the initiatives that I have just mentioned, but we'll also take away the key decisions that will be made through the discussions so that we can take them forward as part of the program on corridor performance within the EAC. I thank you all. I thank our resource persons that are going to be sharing information, perspectives, and outcomes from the studies that have been commissioned. And I once again thank EABC for organizing this important discussion. I wish you well and have a good morning. On corridor performance.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Acting SG. And those are very good initiatives that the EAC Secretariat has put in place and deployed to facilitate trade and investment across our region and connecting the people and traders across our region. That is, we're looking forward to hearing from the resource person from the Secretariat. And without further ado, I wish also to recognize the presence of our former chair, Mr. Vimal Shah, who is on the call, a seasoned expert and investor in our region. We also look forward to your insights, sir, and Karib Sana. So without further ado, now let's start straight and dig into the program. And we will try to receive a presentation from the EAC Secretariat on more to the initiatives that have been highlighted by the Acting SG. And Mr. Jonathan Sesanga will take us through this presentation. If you want, we can present on your behalf, but if you also want to share your screen, please feel free, but would have wished to roll your slides if you allow us so. So Mr. Jonathan, please, Karib Sana, and I hope you can use the minutes as allocated to you ably. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, if you can raise the voice a bit higher, otherwise we can hear you.
I'm projecting my presentation. Is it visible? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Put on the slide mode.
Okay, thank you so much. Maybe for purposes of this presentation, I will display my camera later so that there are no cuts in the flow. I'm called Jonathan Sesang. I'm the Principal Customs Officer in charge of information technology. And I'm going to take you through the aimed at improving corridor performance. But before I do that, I would like to appreciate that the Deputy Secretary General has actually ably highlighted most of the initiatives that have been undertaken. However, I'd like to take you through these initiatives so that you get to know where the Secretariat, what the Secretariat is coordinating or is undertaking together with partner states aimed at improving the corridor performance. I think I will not take you through this one. You are aware that the EAC Secretariat is an intercontinental organization, and the EAC community membership now comprises of Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, Republic of Somalia, and DRC. In this region, geographically, there are two corridors, major corridors, northern and central corridor, though they are now merging cross-corridor routes. Those need taken into consideration. And the issue here that a well-performing corridor plays a significant role, and it will have a significant impact on the competitiveness of the businesses in the region. So now, how do we achieve competitiveness? I think for those who are in business, you're aware that in order to achieve the competitiveness, you must operate at the most optimal or minimal costs. So if there's a reduction in the transportation costs for businesses through improved infrastructure, streamlining of procedures, and enhancement of other logistics, it will provide or it provides a framework under which the trade in the region will be competitive. There's also need to improve on access to markets for businesses by facilitating the movement of goods and services, efficiency, attraction of investors, and generally having an efficient and well-functioning corridor. But now, what have we done, or what have we coordinated as a region? The Deputy Secretary General has talked about the general infrastructure development in the region. And this has been done by partner states, the expansion of roads, creation of new routes, revival of the rail systems. The ports are being expanded, and there's an improvement in the border crossing. So you may recall that maybe like until 10 years ago, the border facilities were really in a miserable state. But you know, in the last 10 years, a number of one-stop border posts have been constructed and are operational. And new border stations have been identified where one-stop border posts are going to be constructed. These are measures that have been put in place to aim at increasing the clearance cargo and efficiency of the cargo movement. When it comes to customs procedures, what I would say that the partner states have all automated their customs procedures. However, we noted that there is need to enhance them further by harmonizing the procedures and also exchange of information through the single customs territory. So you are aware that now you can operate, you can clear the goods at the destination before they even leave the point of entry. So that's what is done under the single customs territory. Information is sent in advance to the destination partner states regarding, say, manifests and other documents required for initiating cargo. Now everything is done in destination, payment of taxes.
So Jonathan, I've lost you.
Oh, sorry.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Jonathan, we have lost you. Oh, we can hear you.
Yeah. Sorry, there was, I think, a power cut on my side, but I think I'm back. Are you still seeing my presentation, or I share again?
No, we can see it. We can see it.
You can see it. You can see it. Proceed, Jonathan.
Okay, thanks, sir. So sorry, let me. Okay, now I've mentioned that there are a number of trade facilitation measures that have been put in place, and the key emphasis has been on the automation of the cargo clearance process. Now, in addition to the main custom systems, other support systems which are helpful in customs administrations in monitoring movement of cargo, such as electronic cargo tracking systems, have been deployed along the corridors. Now, the objective here is not to control the movement or trade, but it eases or it minimizes on the intervention that would have been there if you are employing an electronic cargo tracking system. So that was the objective of implementing electronic cargo tracking systems. And I've already mentioned interconnectivity. Again, at the different points along the corridors, scanners have been installed. All these are aimed at reducing on the interventions that would have been there. You know, previously customs used to inspect all goods, offloading and loading of the what? Of the cargo, but now they use the risk-based mechanisms to examine cargo. Now, some time ago, there were complaints regarding weigh bridges. However, when we undertook a timely study some 10 years ago, we made some recommendations which resulted into improvement of the technologies from the axle by axle weighing to weigh in motion, where a truck just drives through the weigh bridge, and that technology can pick all the weights for the different axles so that the weighing is faster. So these are some of the improvements that have been undertaken and through initiatives and that have been collaboratively been undertaken. You know, some of the issues that might impede faster clearance of cargo is the skills and capability and knowledge of the operators. So from time to time, customs has been undertaking capacity building for the different stakeholders, customs officials, transport operators, and other stakeholders who are operating or involved in the cargo clearance along the corridors. So we have been involved in that. Curriculum has been developed for the different stakeholders in order to improve on their capacity to fast track clearance of cargo. We have also looked at the different levels of the players in trade. And we have spearheaded the implementation of the simplified trade regime, because previously all the importers were required to have the same. They were asking for the same requirements. For example, they must have TIN numbers, they must have clearing agents. But for small scale traders, we noted that there's need to scale down on some of the requirements in order to fast track their clearance. So as part of the capacity building, we also, the simplified trade regime was also implemented as a way of both streamlining the procedures and facilitating these small scale traders. As I wind up, yes, and I think you've heard from the Deputy Secretary General. She said that, yes, we have done quite a lot, but despite all this progress, there are still some challenges we are facing. Some of them are internal or to the agencies involved or external. We still have other interventions which are introduced from time to time by the partner states, and some of these result in non-tariff barriers. So much as we are talking about infrastructure and customs procedures, but there are other interventions which also delay the cargo clearance impacting the corridor performance. And there's still the infrastructure, much of there has been improvements, but still insufficient in some areas. So all these need to be addressed. So what we would like to advise is that there's need for more collaboration between the different agencies and partner states in order to improve on the corridor performance. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jonathan, for presenting the initiatives by the ES Secretariat. And in terms of the corridor performance, infrastructure development, the capacity building, and enhance and awareness of the STR, the simplified trade regime. And we are the challenges highlighted. We look forward to hearing from you later during the panel on basically what the ES is doing to ensure that these challenges are addressed. So thank you so much, sir. And I request that each and everyone or whoever has a question or input, please use the chat. And I recognize the presence of our champion, Ms. Waturi Matu, who is the director, associate director, trade and investment at Equity Holding. Thank you so much, and I already recognized the question that will be answered later, where you're saying which OSBPs have installed smart gates. So basically, probably we'll hear from the ES Secretariat at a later stage. But that notwithstanding, I also welcome the presentation from the Shippers Council, Madam Ms. Pauline Ukwalu, the Policy Advocacy and Monitoring and Evaluation Officer at the Shippers Council of East Africa, to take us through the Logistics Performance Index and what it entails. So please, Pauline, you're welcome. Ms. Pauline, can you hear us?
Geoffrey, we are unable to.
Ms. Pauline, if we cannot, if we can't hear you, probably you're muted. If you could just open your mic, unmute your mic, and start the presentation. We can already view your presentation.
Good morning. Can you hear me right now?
Yes, if you could just raise your voice
Hello.
a bit. If you could just raise your voice a bit, we can hear you and see your presentation.
Okay, so my name is Pauline Duku. I'm working with the Shippers Council of Eastern Africa. I'm here to represent our acting CEO, Mr. Gayo Gambi. And I'll be taking you through the logistics performance survey done by the Shippers Council of Eastern Africa. My outline of the presentation will be about the Shippers Council of Eastern Africa, and then our LPS, which is the logistics performance survey, and which is based on time, cost, and complexity. So in the presentation, I'll be presenting about time, cost, and complexities along the transport and logistics sector. So about the Shippers Council is a membership-based organization that represents the interests of cargo owners in East Africa. It was formed by 6 founding members that include the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Fresh Produce Exporters Association of Kenya, East African Tea Traders Association, East African Cement Producers, Kenya Coffee Traders Association, and the Petroleum Institute of East Africa. And the reason for the formation of the Shippers Council of Eastern Africa was to create a body that can address the logistics challenges that were being faced by the shippers in the region. And our aim is to focus our advocacy initiatives on all modes of freight transportation, and also have trade facilitation related initiatives to address the issues that the shippers face. Our goal is to advocate for regulatory policy changes that will transform the East Africa into a region of high competitiveness and logistics efficiency. About the logistics performance survey that is done by the Shippers Council of Eastern Africa. This is an annual publication, and it is our main tool of advocacy in our quest for having an efficient, cost-effective logistics environment. The survey is also a fulfillment of one of the commitments by the Shippers Council towards the launched Mombasa Port and Northern Corridor Community Charter, which requires the Shippers Council of Eastern Africa to develop and the objective of the survey is to ascertain the overall logistics performance of the ESC partner sets and rank them based on the set of logistics performance indicators localized to East Africa. And in the report, there are policy recommendations that are made to improve, of course, the efficiency and manage freight costs and improve the competitiveness of shippers in East Africa. The publication looks into time, cost, and complexity, and therefore the slides that come up in my presentation are about time, cost, and complexities in the region. As Shippers Council of Eastern Africa, we also do have several publications that we have done in the recent past. We have done a study on the impact of COVID-19 in transport and logistics in East Africa. We have also done a study on fees and charges, that is in relation to Article 6 of the Trade Facilitation Act, looking into the miscellaneous fees and charges and how commensurate are the fees and charges paid to various government agencies in terms of the services rendered. And as well, we have done a study on the implementation of AEO, that is the Authorized Economic Operator, and the pre-arrival processing programs in Kenya. We have also done a survey on the levels of compliance to the import and export processes by the private sector. These are very resourceful documents that you all can have a look at. In terms of average costs, there has been an ongoing discussion of the fact that the Port of Mombasa and the Port of Dar es Salaam, in terms of freight costs, the Port of Mombasa has experienced increase in freight costs, and this is due to destination charges that are applicable when you're importing through the Port of Mombasa, and the same are not charged through the Port of Dar es Salaam. There have been ongoing discussions on removal of the destination charges by various shipping lines at the Port of Mombasa, just to enhance the competitiveness. And we have done a summary, though the total shipping cost almost range the same rate, but in view of having the surcharges at the Port of Mombasa and the same are not charged at the Port of Dar es Salaam, the business community is key to have them removed in order to enhance the competitiveness and reduction in costs. When it comes to transport rates along the Northern Corridor, you'll see that these rates are per container per kilometer, and we have the highest rates at 3.0 has a 2023 from Mombasa to Goma, and that is followed by Mombasa to Juba, and these rates are even higher than the best practices for which call for $1 per kilometer per container in the European countries. So we are still yet, though there has been reduction in transport costs when in comparison to 2022, we are still at a high rate because it's not in line with or aligned with the best practices of having transport rates at $1 sorry, per container per kilometer. And some of the reasons for these high rates along the region would be lack of return cargo along the corridor. That is when you are transiting from Mombasa to either Uganda, it is likely that you're going to come back with an empty container rather than having a full container. There's also the issues of insecurity, especially from Mombasa to Juba. There's issues of the road conditions. We have issues of delays in border crossing times and also less round trips due to the high transit time. Thus leading to the high transport rates along the corridor. Below is the Kenya Railway Corporation tariff rates. And these rates are according to the Kenya Railway Tariff Notice number 3 of 2021, Cap 397. And you will see that on average from Kilindini to Mombasa, for an import transit, you pay from Kilindini to Malaba, you pay an average of $860. That is for 20 foot, less than 30 tons, and for 40 foot, less than 30 tons, that is around 110, $1,110. And also we have a schedule of fees for import local loaded from Mombasa to Naivasha, Nairobi, Athi River, Kisumu, and also Naivasha. And you will notice that for dangerous and reefer containers, the KRC charges 20% above the normal rates. That is above the normal rates that I have displayed here for you. And for empty containers from Mombasa upwards, they are charged the same as a full container. We have had 20% volume discount applicable for containers from Mombasa to Nairobi. But then in terms of performance, you'll find that for the year 2023, the volume of containers railed from Mombasa to ICD has declined by 14%. And the same from January, there's been a 45% decline in the volume of cargo delivered from Mombasa to ICD. And in February, there was a 59% decline. And the impact, the reason for the decline in volumes that are railed is attributed to the presidential directive of having cargo services moving back to Mombasa, as well as there is a TBL markup that raises the rail rates for containers. There's also delays, enormous delays in railage. More than often, containers when it's high peak season for the port of Mombasa have been able to stay even for more than 7 days, having not been railed from Mombasa to ICD. And lastly, there is the challenge of last mile connectivity. Thus, using the road is much better than using the Kenya, the SGR, sorry. These are the containerized cargo costs for downwards. This is from Malaba, Kisumu, Malaba, Mombasa, Kisumu, Mombasa, Malaba, Naivasha, Kisumu, Naivasha, and as well as from Malaba to Nairobi. And those are the rates that are applicable according to Kenya Railway tariff. At Shippers Council, we are keen to measure the additional costs that the shippers incur due to delays, especially in system downtimes or delays in cargo clearance. And over the first 4 years since 2020, the storage costs paid at the inland container depot have gone down from 3.6 billion shillings to 1.2. And the reasons for reduction is that we have continuously sensitized our members. We have continually sensitized our members on the waiver application process. As long as at ICD, as long as the delay in clearance of cargo is caused by either system downtimes or any government agencies, you are eligible to apply for a waiver, attaching the requisite documentations, and then you are granted a waiver, and that has really helped. The second reason is that there has been reduced volumes at the ICDS, as I have alluded into that. And also, there has been an increase in the use of pre-arrival processing that's fast-tracking the clearance of cargo and the onboarding of authorized economic operators due to initiatives that we have done based on the study that we did on the implementation of the two programs. Just to add on to that, we have done continuous advocacy on improved efficiency, just to have cargo cleared as soon as possible, and this includes the use of non-intrusive means of verification, that is the use of scanners, saving on time as well. And also the Kenya Ports Authority reduced the storage bans that were applicable from 4 to 2. So those are some of the reasons that have led to the reduction of the additional costs that are storage costs incurred by the shippers. In terms of time, you can see the performance of the ship turnaround time at the Port of Mombasa. It is last year it was an average of 79.2, and this is 79.2 hours, and this is higher than the global benchmark of 24 hours. So we still continuing to advocate for a reduction of this time to ensure that there is a high turnaround time for ships at the Port of Mombasa. And the Kenya Ports Authority attributes the high ship turnaround time to the increase in sizes of the vessels that are docking right now. Majority of the vessels are larger than they were before. Thus, the offloading takes quite time. On average container dwell time at the Port of Mombasa, last year we were at 86.4 hours. This is as well against a global benchmark of 24 hours, that is a day. And the high transit time, high containerized cargo dwell time is because of especially the bunching of vessels. When all vessels dock at the same time, then it's more likely that containers are going to be evacuated at a slow rate. And also the high peak season, it's always a challenge at the Port of Mombasa, whereby you find that containers can stay up to 21 days without being evacuated. At the ICD, we also track the cargo clearance time, the percentage of cargo cleared within the free time, and has had February 2024, the cargo cleared within their free period was at 90%. This is an improvement from 50% that was being cleared at 2020, and this is a more reason for why most of the storage costs have gone down. In terms of this, the percentage of physical verification, this has also gone down from 2020 at a percentage of 37% to 9% in the month of February 2024, and have said that this is due to the risk-based verification through use of non-intrusive means of verification. For example, the use of scanners has really saved time and costs when it comes to clearance of cargo. In terms of transit time, Kenya Malaba, we had as of 2022 from Mombasa to Busia was around 77% hours, sorry, and Mombasa Malaba was at 80 hours. And this is against the Mombasa port and Northern Corridor target of 40 hours and 45 from Mombasa to Malaba. So there's still a challenge, and some of the reasons of as to why the transit time is high is because of numerous roadblocks along the corridor. As we will see here in this slide, reasons for frequent stops, majority of the leading frequent stops is because of police and security checks at 36%. Also, we have Weybridge, the way at 11%, and as the transport and logistics team has been able to have a discussion around the frequent stops along the corridor, and we had last year the president directing that there should be no interruption of transit cargo in terms of security check, and as well as the way should be only from the point of entry and the point of exit, which is really going to bring down the transit time. We have an analysis of the time taken to process permits, and this is by KenTrade at the trade facilitation platform. And we have agencies that, for example, the Pharmacy and Poison Board take at an average of 8.4 days to approve a permit. These are some of the reasons why cargo clearance takes delay. And also we have like NEMA, the average time is around 19 days, which is quite high, as opposed to the average time, which is supposed to be less than 24 hours. In terms of complexities, we still have, as a region, we still have disparities in levy and road user charges across the partner states. We have numerous road stops along the corridor, as I said in my previous presentation. We have an harmonized implementation of the vehicle axle loads. We have lack of interconnectivity of the customs systems under the single customs territory. Some of the systems at the borders, especially Olili, are not connected. We have an harmonized standard across East Africa, and this is with respect to packaging, labeling, and as well as some of the excessive duties that are imposed, especially on confectionery. We have lack of facilitation. The logistics performance survey brings out. From the role of transport and logistics services, and one of them is enhancing participation And this is through either direct investments or through public-private partnerships. And the private sector also has a role into development and adoption of new technologies, processes, business models to ensure improvement.
Pauline, we can barely hear you, Pauline. You're really breaking.
Sorry, the private sector also has a role in advocacy, and majority of the trade associations have been at the forefront in advocating for policies and regulations that enhance the business environment for shippers. We also have planning of shipments, and this has really helped in reduction of time and cost when it comes to clearance of cargo. We have also a role of adopting the best practices from other industries to streamline operations, reduce waste, and maximize resource utilization, thus leading to reduction of costs and ensuring faster time delivery. That's the end of my presentation, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Pauline. Thank you for a very good presentation and the initiatives that the Shippers Council is working on. And the complexities highlighted in terms of the road user charges that are unharmonized, the road stops, the implementation challenges in the Vehicle Load Act of 2016, the issues of interconnectivity, but I'm most interested also in what the private sector is doing, not necessarily an outcry, but also what the role of the private sector and what you're doing to ensure that these challenges are addressed. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to having you on the panel shortly. I'm sure questions have been noted, and I also encourage participants to use the chat to note down the questions to respective speakers or panelists, and we shall flag them to them ably. So we'll hear also after the presentation from the private sector. I think it is important and pertinent to hear from the corridor authorities, the opportunities that that they present in terms of improving efficiency and opportunities for the traders and transporters across the region that are using those respective corridors. In that case, we welcome Mr. Emmanuel Tajengwa from the Central Corridors Secretariat Authority, Transport Authority, to also give us the presentation on what they are doing to create the efficiency as well as creating the competitiveness of the Central Corridor. Karibu sana, Mr. Emmanuel.
Thank you very much, Geoffrey.
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Emmanuel. Please go ahead.
Are you projecting? Or I project from us?
You could project. Pauline, if you could stop sharing. Thank you.
You want to project for me?
We can project for you. We can project for you. Harmonic, if could you please project Emmanuel's presentation? Amo, if you could kindly present Emmanuel's presentation in the Central Secretariat.
Okay, I'm projecting.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes, you can see the presentation. Mr. Emmanuel, please go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Geoffrey. Executive Director, John Bosco Kalisa, acting SG East African Community, organizers of this webinar, and all the participants. I want to thank you for the invitation, inviting the Central Corridor to participate in this very important meeting. I'm called Emmanuel Mtajenga, like on the screen. I'm the Director of Transport Policy and Planning at the Central Corridor Secretariat, and I'm very happy to represent the Executive Secretary, who is out of station. Yeah, okay. I want to take you through the performance of the Central Corridor, what we have achieved, our challenges, what we are doing to improve the performance of the corridor and improve connectivity and the business around the corridor. Can you make it wider? Make it wider. As you can see, the Central Corridor is a multimodal transport corridor that is connected by all modes of transportation. We're connected by roads, railways, inland waterways, linking the port of Dar es Salaam to the landlocked countries of the Central Corridor. For the starters, the Central Corridor was founded by originally 5 countries, that is Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, Burundi, and DRC. But recently, we expanded. We have Malawi that joined the Central Corridor in December last year, in 2023, and the Republic of Zambia that is in the process of joining the Central Corridor. Their cabinet approved the accession into the agreement, and their full accession will be approved in the board meeting and the ministerial meeting in June this year. So there will be 7 members by June this year. Can you proceed? So basically, Central Corridor will be connecting the East African community and the SADC region as well. So the mandate of the corridor, it is the same as all other corridors. It is to coordinate, operations of the corridor, creating strategic business partnerships for the member states, connecting markets with modern climate resilience infrastructure, that is our vision, promoting maintenance and the development of new infrastructure, but also making sure that the corridor is efficient and cost effective, and encouraging, initiatives that reduce the cost of doing business within the corridor. Can we continue? Proceed. Yeah, I want to take through the achievements of the Central Corridor. Central Corridor is not an old institution. The agreement setting up the Central Corridor was signed in 2006, but the office, the Secretariat, was established in 2010. So we've been there for very few years, but our impact has been massive. Looking at the Port of Dar es Salaam, efficiency has been, it has improved. It has improved. Of course, there's some challenges that still exist, but the ship turnaround time reduced from 7 days to 2.5 days during that period. The cargo dwell time decreased from 22 to less than 7 days. The truck turnaround time, it was reduced from 4.3 days to 2.3 days. The cargo throughput was raised from 13.6 million tons in 2016 to 24 million tons in 2023. So you can see in less than 10 years, we've seen the cargo, the throughput of the Port of Dar es Salaam doubling. And this has also had an impact on the operations of the port itself because of the cargo throughput that has increased significantly. The road system within the Central Corridor has been also streamlined. We've seen checkpoints, police checkpoints, including customs checkpoints, reduced from 55 to 3, reducing, significantly the transit time. The transit cargo is only inspected at only 3 stops within the corridor. Driving from the Port of Dar es Salaam to Sumo, to Mutukula, to Kabanga Kobero, you only stop at 3 stops. And previously you had to stop at every checkpoint. So we've supported the establishment of the electronic cargo tracking system, eliminating the need for physical escorts and reducing the risk of goods disappearing along the way. And this also has helped with, the turnaround time of the trucks, and the business has improved a lot. So we've supported improvement in the border crossing activities, transit trucks crossing time has reduced by 55% as a result of the one-stop border posts. You've seen the presentation from the East African community. The OSBPs connecting all the borders of the Central Corridor has had an impact on the border crossing time. We've recently also invested in border management systems at Rusumo Port, border posts, and at the Central Corridor and Rwanda, we are able to inspect, the crossing time at the border. And we've seen that is a good thing in terms of monitoring the transit time. So we want to do the same with the other borders of Rusumo and Butukola and Kabanga Kobero as well. So monthly ship waiting time. This is a very big challenge now within the port of Dar es Salaam. If you see the outer anchorage at the port of Dar es Salaam, you see a lot of ships, and the ship waiting time has increased dramatically to now 13 days. This is very high because if you have to wait for the goods to be offloaded and you have to wait for 2 weeks, that's a lot of time. And this has been caused by a dramatic increase in cargo, doubling the cargo throughput in less than 10 years, and yet the capacity of the port has not increased, proportionally. Next. The transit containers dwell time as well in Terminal 1. You can see it is also still high, but it reduced from last year to today. At least, we've seen a reduction, but it's still very high. It's less than 10 days. Next time, next. Continue. Yeah, on Terminal 2, monthly transit container dwell time, it has also reduced a bit. It has reduced to 6 days, all the way from 9 days. So we've been seeing some reduction also from last year to 2023. Next. Next slide. Yeah, so it is evident that dwell time at the Terminal 2 for transit containers in 2023 has reduced significantly from 2022 to 2021. And the dwell time in 2023 was observed to improve towards December 2023 and stabilizing at the range of 5 days compared to 7 days in 2022. Next. Next slide. Yeah, so you can see the dwell time has reduced from 11 days to 6.4. It is still very high. Our target is to make it at least 4 maximum, and we are still working very hard with the port authorities and all the stakeholders to make sure that it reduces further to at least 4 days. Next. Next slide. Yeah, so I want to also take through you our ongoing flagship projects, our investments within the corridor. Our job as the Central Corridor, it is not just to facilitate trade and transit transportation, but also we are making significant investments in terms of supporting the private sector and the public sector to do business along the corridor. So we are investing in the SGR, Standard Gauge Railway. So we support member states to do the fundraising and coordination and implementation of the SGR and its extension to neighboring countries, Tanzania, Burundi, and DRC extension, as well as Isaka Kigali SGR extension. So we've used our own resources within the corridor to convene meetings for coordination purposes, but also to through the studies, feasibility studies, to be able to raise resources to invest into the infrastructure. So there is the integrated transport program for major inland waterways. We have programs on Lake Tanganyika, Lake Victoria, and Lake Kivu. On Lake Victoria, on Lake Tanganyika, we are investing in improvement of the ports, a port of Kalemi, Kalundo, and also Kigoma Port within Tanzania, so that we create the smooth supply chain of the goods, from SGR, from railways to land waterways, the transshipments on Lake Tanganyika as well. So we're also working on improving the safety of navigation at all these lakes, Lake Tanganyika, Lake Victoria, and Lake Kivu. We are currently mobilizing resources to be able to improve the safety of navigation. Operational support, maybe to give you an example, as well as Lake Victoria, we are working with the Ministry of Works and Transport and the Uganda Railways Corporation. We've raised resources to be able to expand and extend, the operations of Port Bell. As most of you have visited Port Bell, the port is very old. It has no capacity to handle containers. And the SGR that is being constructed within the Central Corridor is connecting Mwanza as well. So the load between Mwanza and Isaka, it is now at 55% completed. So within the next 2 years, the construction of SGR connecting Mwanza port will be completed. And we've been in discussion with Uganda to improve the operations of Port Bell. And in the next few months, we'll be launching feasibility studies and detailed designs for the new port of Port Bell to be able to handle containers as well, but also developing it into a regional green port, to a port that is able to reduce carbon emissions. And we want to do the same for other regional ports as well. So Port Bell will be the role model in terms of green ports. Once completed, we'll be doing a replication for other inland waterways. So we provide operational support to Central Corridor MGR as well, meter gauge railway. The existing railways, we keep supporting them. We provided funds to member states, to Tanzania to rehabilitate railway wagons, as well as to Uganda. Uganda, we rehabilitated 20 railway wagons. This is part of our effort to increase the capacity of our logistics services and the capacity to handle more container goods as well. Central Corridor Road Network construction and rehabilitation, we've supported and carried out feasibility studies and detailed engineering designs for Kalundu Port, Ruberezi, Kamanyola, Bukavu Road. Most of the goods that, cross Lake Tanganyika, going inland to DRC, most of their roads are very bad. So we are supporting the improvement of those roads. And after completing the studies, we already have, contractors in place, constructing those roads connecting to the markets in DRC. We've also done feasibility studies for the roadside stations in Rwanda. We are supporting also the road, Muhanga-Mukamira Road. For those of you who are familiar with Rwanda, this is the road that connects from Muhanga through Mukamira. It connects, it provides links to DRC, to Uganda, and to Burundi. This road is one of the most vulnerable roads, in terms of the effects of climate change. And the government of Rwanda approached us, and we are mobilizing resources to install early warning systems for the environmental disaster management, but also conducting feasibility studies and designs for the 12 spots identified on the road so that we can fix them. Much of, during the rainy season, these roads are always closed sometimes because of the floods and the landslides. So we'll be launching a study on the modal shift options of cargo from the trucks to the new SGR. We've already obtained funding from the Spanish government, and this funding will explore the possibilities and the support to be provided to the private sector to be able to shift their cargo with the new SGR. We are developing, strategic dry ports as well for the member states. The Kwara dry port for Burundi, we are supporting them from our own budget, and DRC in Tanzania. Isaka dry port, we are also doing a feasibility study on, Rwanda has a plot at Isaka dry port, and we are doing a feasibility study for them and the designs. so that they are able to develop that plot. You know, SGR construction is moving very fast, and within the next 2 to 3 years, to be connecting Isaka Dry Port, Mwanza Port as well. So we are developing these inland container depots so that, you know, they can be used to decongest the port of Dar es Salaam as well. Then there's Kasumbalesa and the Kasambondo dry ports for Tanzania and DRC. We are also doing some work there. So Portobello, this one we've already obtained funding to do the feasibility study and the designs, and we'll be launching the studies. So we want that port to be able to handle the containers. Next. Next slide. Yeah, okay. You know, at the Central Corridor, we are implementing a new strategic plan. And the strategic plan, it has a pillar. One of the pillars of that strategy is to shift, you know, the Central Corridor into a green economic development corridor. You know, the traditional corridors are just transport facilitation corridors, but we think we can make significant impact if we support the private sector. And you can't support the private sector and the member states to improve their social and economic well-being if you just facilitate. So want to invest in production, to invest in manufacturing, to invest in developing the value chains. And that is a vision that Central Corridor is taking. And we've already started, you know, next slide. We've started on this transformation. Next slide. Yeah, so the main benefit of this shift is to prioritize high impact regional value chains development, which would result into increased exports, reducing, you know, the empty backhaul traffic. You've seen the presentation from the Shippers Council. Most of the trucks that come from the ports going to the landlocked countries, they come back empty. And you can't reduce the cost of transportation if it is a one-way traffic, you know. So this project is coming to, you know, to support production, support, you know, value addition, but also to increase exports from member states. So basically we'll be reducing, you know, providing the import substitution and the jobs and socio-economic benefits to the communities. Most of these corridors were conceived by the colonialists. And what we are doing now is just a colonial legacy. The infrastructure that were built, the railways that were built, they were built for their own benefit, connecting mines so that they are able to ship the raw materials. Basically, they're shipping raw materials, they're shipping value, they're shipping the jobs, they're shipping everything to their own countries. So we want to change that and encourage production, value addition, manufacturing, you know, developing these regional value chains within the member states of the Central Corridor. So the milestones achieved so far as the transformation is concerned, we've conducted a benchmarking study of the most successful corridor transformation case. Here we looked at the Greater Mekong sub-regional corridors. This is a corridor that is found in Southeast Asia. The countries like Philippines, Vietnam, Myanmar, China, all those countries came together and they formed this, what they call the Greater Mekong sub-regional corridor. So they started their transformation 30 years ago, and it has been a very big success. If you go to shops in Europe and America, you find products from this region. The garment industries has been developed under this transformation, and so many sectors as well. So the Green Economic Development Corridor concept was developed and was adopted by the Council of Ministers. And our agreement was also amended, and it reflects this vision as well. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is the roadmap that we want to take. And we want to start by assessing and selecting regional value chains with the highest transformative potential. For example, in the mining sector, we want to look at some of these products like the processing, the battery manufacturing for the e-vehicles. The future now is in the e-vehicles. So, and we have all the raw materials, we have all the products within the region. So we want to study and see how we can attract investments in the manufacturing of batteries for the e-vehicles within the region, using our own resources, our own minerals within the region. We want to look at so many sectors like agro-based industries, fish processing, fisheries, and everything. There's so many regional variables that we want to look at. So we will identification and prioritization of the corridor catalytic anchor projects, including the necessary backbone infrastructure, so that we can support, you're connecting the markets to the production centers. And the next stage will be facilitating member states in supporting interventions. For example, in the market linkages, enabling environment for the reforms that are required, the regulation that are required to support this kind of investments, the workforce development, so that we can have the capacity that is required to support this vision. So the next stage will be packaging and marketing of the projects to bankability, and we'll be convening investors roundtables to invest into these value chain that have been developed and identified by the member states. So this is a phased approach, it's a transformational plan that we will be developing, and its implementation is going to be phased. You can't achieve this transformation within 5 to 10 years. But of course, every 5 years, we'll be making some headways. So member states have selected, have given a mandate to Central Corridor to facilitate this transformation process. But of course, member states will be right in the middle in terms of, its implementation. Next. Yeah, so these are our key partners. We work very closely with the African Development Bank on several projects. We work for the Trade Market East Africa Now. We work with the German Corporation. We work with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. We work with the East African Community, the Kuni Foundation, African Union Commission, and several private sector players within the region, because what we do is what they want. So our approach is bottom up. We can't sit here at the Secretariat and start conceiving projects without the private sector and the public sector getting involved. So I want to thank you very much for giving us an opportunity for this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel. Much appreciated for the efforts done by the Central Corridor Transport and Transit Authority. While we celebrate the increase in cargo throughput from 13.6 to 2.4 metric tons, but also take into consideration the increase in cargo dwell time. And I think, because as you mentioned, because the ports have not increased, while cargo has increased, and therefore there's a drastic increase in the dwell time. Probably we'll have to hear from what is being done to what is envisaged ahead. But also we recognize your efforts and really ambitious projects that you have there, fundraising for the SGR coordination and extensions, also alternative modes of transport through the waterways at Lake Tanganyika. The going green, I think this is a very brilliant idea of making sure that the ports are going green to ensure sustainability and adaptation and reduction of carbon emissions. That's really great, and kudos to that. And also considering maintaining the MGRs so that they facilitate the transport. We're looking forward to outcomes from that study of the shift from tracking to SGR. Kindly share when, as and when it is done. so that our members can actually have a look at what are the cost benefits of tracking, sorry, from FGR from tracking. And that will be very good. And also, whatever you're doing, benchmarking on the best practices through the Greater Mekong Sub-Region initiatives. So we're looking forward to that, and kudos to the Central Corridor. We'll, of course, hear from you later on the panel session. And for now, I request that Mr. Lewis also takes the floor to tell us what is happening with the Northern Corridor and what the authority is doing to ensure that the corridor is as competitive as expected for the private sector to benefit and our partner states in general. Mr. Lewis, Dennis, please kindly take over to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Geoffrey, and thank you to EABC for inviting us to be on this panel today. I want to first present the apologies of the Executive Secretary. He is actually on mission in Dar es Salaam. He was meeting our counterparts Central Corridor, discussing collaboration and partnership opportunities. So I'll then proceed to present. I have shared my presentation with you, but I could also do it on my end.
If you could do it on your end, I think it's going to be easier so that you run the slides quickly. Thank you.
Okay, let me try share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, please. If you just put it in the slide mode. Okay, thank you. We can see it. Please
All
take
right.
it away.
Thank you very much. So I'm looking at the Northern Corridor in general. Then I present the performance of the corridor along the same lines as my colleague has done, and then quickly look at the main issues and challenges, and then what efforts we are putting in place towards trade and transport facilitation, then give an overview of the major projects and programs, and then identify specific opportunities for private sector investment, and then make some quick recommendations. So as a corridor, we are linking the Great Lakes countries of Burundi, Congo, Rwanda, South Sudan, and Uganda to the Kenyan seaport of Mombasa. So the main port for the Northern Corridor is Mombasa Port, but we also serve other countries like Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Somalia. And our corridor is the busiest in this part of Africa, as well as Central. It's a multimodal corridor looking at road, rail, pipeline, ports, and inland waterways. As a secretariat, we coordinate the operations of the different member states, and we are based in Mombasa. We have the Northern Corridor Agreement, which has 11 protocols that guide our operations. And we are currently introducing a new protocol on environment and sustainability. Our objectives: facilitate trade, stimulate economic and social development, transform the corridor into an economic development corridor, and finally focus on environmental sustainability issues. Our reporting structure is similar to our sister corridor, having the Council of Ministers at the apex. Then we have the Executive Committee, which is the committee of either principal secretaries or permanent secretaries or under secretaries in South Sudan, all being those responsible for transport, infrastructure, and roads in the different countries. Then we have specialized technical committees that guide the needs and priorities of the member states, such that everything we do is informed by the priorities of the member states as presented by the technical committees. We are the permanent secretariat based in Mombasa, and we also have a public-private partnerships committee. This brings together all key stakeholders, covering all private sector representatives as well as government agencies to discuss critical issues, deliberate, and find quick solutions. So in terms of performance, our approach in this presentation is first the macroeconomics of the different member states, and then looking at the volumes as coming through the Port of Mombasa, and then efficiencies through different indicators. Then we look at costs for road, rail, pipeline, and then the time it takes to move cargo from the Port of Mombasa to different destinations inland. Now, our population is growing. Basically, in all these countries, we have average population growth rates of almost 2%. Okay, so 2.45% average population growth rates. Countries like Congo growing at 3.26%. So this is quite high. A population currently of about 247 million people within the 6 member states of the Northern Corridor. So the question then is, how do we plan for these countries? GDP growth rates on average about 4.9% for last year, 5.5% for this year. And we understand that cargo handled, especially at ports, is usually derived demand cargo. So this is cargo that is informed by the growth of the countries, by the consumption powers of the citizens, as well as the projects that are being undertaken in the different countries. So this then informs how we plan. And when you look at Mombasa port throughput, 2019-2023, we have grown from about 34 million tons to 35 million tons. It was a bit wavy because of COVID-19, but previously the average growth rate was 10%. This has gone down slightly because of different challenges after COVID-19, but it's now taking off again. We are almost at 36 million tons. Capacity has been expanded as well to be able to accommodate this growth. We have distributions, imports taking up 79.1%. So the question is, why are we net importers, exporting only 13.8%? So as a corridor, then we are looking at how do we support our member states to build their exports base? What investments do we need to do as countries in this region to increase our exports as we balance imports and reduce our imports to only what is essential? So for us, this is a key issue that we need to address. Volumes for each member state, Kenya takes up more than 21 million out of the 36 million tons of cargo. Uganda follows at about 7 million. Then we have the other countries with South Sudan and DRC growing very quickly in terms of the cargo volumes that they handle through the Port of Mombasa. Transit share, we have Uganda taking up about 62.3%. Then the other countries follow, South Sudan at about 16%. So as we plan the growth and development of our corridor, we also look at these distributions. Then we see what do we need to do. Into the specific indicators for corridor performance, and I see that Shippers Council of East Africa has also presented this. Our figures seem to be varying a bit, and I was taking note of this. We have a transport observatory portal, and we do reporting annually. And this data is being launched in the next 2 weeks. We have a meeting coming up in Nairobi where we'll launch our annual publication, where we have analyzed these indicators. We have about 46 different indicators, but in this presentation, I've captured, I think, about 10 or so. So for ship turnaround time at Mombasa Port, we are doing about 70 hours. Okay, below a target of 75. So this is what we have been able to find, and this has been coming down steadily over the last 4 years or so. So the targets have been revised based on the prevailing conditions at the Port of Mombasa. And we also have the KPA Bulletin of Statistics that has shared these statistics with us to compare what is it that they intend to achieve and what's currently happening. Average vessel waiting time at the Port of Mombasa, currently about 0.8 days as at 2023 December, against a target of 0.3 days. Again, this figure has been coming down steadily, though 2021, 2022, it went up a bit. For different reasons, now down to about 0.8. Our effort is towards improving this and supporting the Port Authority to be able to achieve their target of 0.3 days. Then we have the annual containerized import cargo dwell time. Again, average of 60 hours for the last 3 years. Unfortunately, currently operating above that, 85.8 hours. Then we look at the way bridges and compliance in terms of weight. On the Kenyan section first, before looking at the other countries, we see that compliance is high, mostly above 95%. At Mariakani Way Bridge, at River, in Busia, it's slightly lower, sometimes going as low as 79%. So the question is, what's happening with our cargo as it moves from Mombasa to the borders and then getting into the other countries? We've had several discussions with our stakeholders, and some of the challenges are the status of the road itself. So this keeps shifting the cargo even within the trucks. By the time they are being weighed at exit, you find that they are not compliant because of the shifts in the cargo. But otherwise, these are issues that are currently under discussion. Then we look at road transport rates from Mombasa to the different destinations in the corridor. Again, we have received this presentation earlier from the Shippers Council. From our assessment, we are looking at an average of about $2 per kilometer for Mombasa-Nairobi stretch. But these rates go as high as $5.77 per kilometer. Again, why will this be the case? Okay, spending $6,000 for 1,000 kilometers, Nairobi to Bunia. So these are the issues that we have, and our request therefore is, how do we manage to bring down the costs of transport along our corridor? Because this is fundamental in attracting investments, in attracting utilization of the corridor, and making the region as a whole more competitive. When you look at tankers specifically from Mombasa to other destinations within Kenya as well as Kampala, we have about 4.5 shillings per liter. Diesel or petrol, we have about 5.3 shillings per liter. Heavy furnace oil, and more or less the same amount, but going higher as you move from Mombasa to Kisumu, Eldoret, and up to $80 per 1,000 liters for Mombasa to Kampala. Then we have tanker rates also from Kenya to specifically DRC and Rwanda, an average of about looking at 5,000 for DRC and between $4,000 and $2,000 for Kenyan towns to Kigali. Then we have the railway tariff. This is exactly the same as what has been shared earlier. Movement from Mombasa to Malaba for 20-foot and 40-foot containers. Again, the question is, and I like what the acting SG for ESC said, are these the benchmarks internationally? Is this the best that we can do? What do we need to do to make this more attractive? Okay, so these are costs that we need to manage, especially if we want to support a multimodal transport system. How do we encourage movement from trucks to rail when we have these kinds of costs or charges? So again, this is what we have. Naivasha Malaba, about $350 below 30 tons, $450 above 30 tons. We have something similar for Uganda, looking at both the Northern Corridor side and Central Corridor side, about $2,500 for a 20-foot container from Mombasa to Kampala for the road versus 1,305 to 2,300 on the railway side. So you find that the rail costs are lower than the road costs. The question is, how efficient is the railway system? Is there an extra charge at the end of the day for the last mile connectivity? So how do we package our transport system so that it is efficient end to end? Then we also look at transit time from Mombasa to different destinations. In 2023, we are doing about 109 hours from Mombasa to Kampala, 112 hours to Nimule, about 157 hours to Kasindi, and 129 hours to Kigali. Again, the rates have been fluctuating over time. Some places we have a major drop, in other places the figures go up a bit. Again, the issues presented earlier by the Shippers Council, issues of roadblocks, issues of the state of infrastructure, issues of crossing time at the borders, all these affect the movement from Mombasa to the final destination. Then when we come to the issues and challenges, what we have done is to look at it from the perspective of our stakeholders. And we did this when we were developing our strategic plan. And we tried to categorize these issues based on the different areas that we handle, like trade and transport harmonization, transport infrastructure, from an M&E perspective, issues of capacity, issues of engagement. And we see that there's need for harmonization of policies and regulations across our different member states. And these are the same issues that have been raised earlier and even raised by Central Corridor as well. The axle load issues, the weighbridge issues, clearance at the borders, customs issues, the electronic cargo system issues. And we need to reduce the non-tariff barriers. We need to encourage building up of ICT infrastructure, among others. Most importantly, we need to enhance PPP uptake in our member states, because this comes with increased efficiency, better technology, accessing infrastructure earlier, as opposed to what will be the case if we are to wait for public sector to allocate adequate resources through the annual budgets, as well as better maintenance and operations over time. So in our strategic plan, we are focusing on trade policy harmonization, transport policy harmonization, enhanced physical connectivity, and environmental and social sustainability. And we believe that all the projects and programs, once aligned to these key focus areas, will be able to address the issues and challenges as raised by private sector stakeholders. Then on trade and transport facilitation, these are the initiatives that we have in place. We are looking at trade policy harmonization, removal of non-tariff barriers, encouraging information sharing. Okay, the Transport Observatory portal is key on this. We also have the Northern Corridor Business Information Portal that is facilitating these exchanges. We are looking at trade facilitation in terms of enabling smooth movement of products along the corridor, improving efficiency at the port, reducing transport costs as well as transit time along the corridor. We are also looking at investments in special economic zones as well as industrial parks that will increase the productive capacities of our member states so that we can promote regional value chains, we can add value to whatever we produce, we can increase exports so as to build utilization of the corridor and increase our exports. Then trade-related infrastructure, trading platforms for women, youth, and micro, small, and medium enterprises, especially across borders, promoting PPP projects. Currently, we have done a PPP policy for the Republic of South Sudan. We are carrying out capacity building initiatives for our member states. We have a training coming up for Burundi and Congo, purely in French. We've been training continuously all the PPP units within our member states. We are profiling projects and seeing how we can work with the PPP units and the ministries of finance to promote PPPs in this region. Then on trade finance, improving the interconnectedness of the border payment systems between our member states. Then finally, also looking at how do we support operationalization of existing policies and protocols on free movement of persons, capital, and labor across the 6 member states of the Northern Corridor. In terms of the major projects, we are supporting special economic zones, development of major zones in Uganda and South Sudan. We are supporting development of an SEZ policy in Burundi, work closely with Kenya and Rwanda to build capacity for other member states on zones development, operations, master planning, and feasibility studies. We are also supporting roadside stations, encouraging private sector investments, and we already have one major RSS coming up in Kenya, and the same in the different member states. We have done regulations on roadside stations for Kenya. We've done guidelines for Uganda, roadside stations. We've done feasibility studies for a private investor in Kenya, as well as for Bugarama roadside stations in Burundi, and also for 2 roadside stations in Congo. So again, this is a priority. We have just launched the Green Freight Transport Strategy 2030 for the Northern Corridor. We were supported by UNEP on this, and now working on how do we operationalize this? How do we mobilize resources to implement the different activities and investments that are required to achieve a full green freight corridor? We're also looking at regional infrastructure development, especially through investments by private sector. We have major roads, looking at pipelines, looking at how we improve railways, how we rehabilitate railways. All these are planned. We have done a major study on inland waterways. We have identified the policy framework for investments in inland waterways. We have identified the main needs for infrastructure development in our inland waterways and are now mobilizing private sector investments in inland waterways. Then continuously working on transport harmonization, transport policy harmonization in the different member states, as well as building up our transport observatory portal to give us real-time data on issues happening along the corridor and how we can quickly move into action. We have the Northern Corridor Business Information Portal that helps our traders to see opportunities, to market their products, to find partners, to network, and also to see what else they can do beyond the Northern Corridor region. How do they access opportunities presented by the African Continental Free Trade Area, as well as others across the region? With this, we are also looking at capacity building for our traders at different levels so that we can close the gap to help them produce export quality. Then in terms of investment opportunities for private sector, infrastructure in the different modes of transport, including special economic zones as well through PPPs. And we are discussing with the different PPP units to see how we can facilitate, especially the local component in these investments, because most of the investors coming in to do these infrastructures are international. So how do we get our local companies to also participate? Then moving on to the implementation phase of the green freight strategy that we have launched, encouraging green electric vehicles, as well as charging infrastructure and production of batteries, as well as other facilities within facilities like special economic zones. So for the zones, we are looking at master planning as a key area for private investors. Let them do their plans, let them develop on-site infrastructure as we have the public agencies doing the off-site infrastructure, so that we enable them to access the land that they have, do their own planning and invest. These are key, especially in creating employment, attracting research and development, increasing technology adaptation, and building capacities within our region. I've mentioned the roadside stations, the inland waterways, and the different alternatives for transport infrastructure. So as I conclude, we have some recommendations that we want to table. Enhancing private sector participation in corridor development, I think, is key. Then reducing the dominance of public investments in infrastructure to give an opportunity to private investors, especially through PPPs, but clearly facilitated, incentivized, and secured so that these investments are safe and guaranteed. Then reducing crowding out of private investments, especially in infrastructure, having clear incentives for private sector investments, governments to provide an enabling investment environment for private sector to thrive, then tapping into available funding through different partners, as well as long-term funding options, then improving governance systems to be able to protect investments, especially by the private sector, improving public policies. As I mentioned, we are supporting our member states to do investment policies, PPP policies, transport policies. This will help in guiding investments. And finally, building capacity, especially within the public sector, to be able to appreciate the role of private sector, the role of private investments, the role of a clear incentive structure, and how to create an enabling environment for private sector investments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bwana Dennis, for articulately bringing out these issues. And I like the recommendations that you're putting forward. We are really taking note of this, and somehow, somewhere, someone will be responsible for ensuring that these recommendations are implemented, or few of them, looking at the most low-hanging fruits, especially on harmonization as the treaty provides for them. Allow me to thank you very much, really, for what the Northern Corridor is doing, and the support projects that you have in place to facilitate the competitiveness and efficiency of the Northern Corridor for the benefit of the users. You will allow me to constitute a panel. I'm mindful of the time that I could be standing between your lunch hours, but trust me, we are going to use the allocated time, and I'm sure we are on time as planned on the program. And we are going to constitute a panel. Most of the panelists will be people that have presented made the presentations. But allow me to recognize the presence of Dr. Marian as our first panelist. Dr. Marion, if you could just wave to us or say hi that you're still around. Dr. Marion Sebonya, the chairperson of the National Logistics Platform Uganda. Dr. Marion, you are around.
I am still around. Good afternoon and happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good to have you always, Dr. Marion. We'll have Mr. Jonathan Sesanga, the PCO. Are you still around, sir?
Yes, I'm available, sir.
Very good. Mr. Emmanuel, hoping you're still around as well.
Yeah, I'm available.
Great. Mr. Dennis, as well as Ms. Pauline. So without take much of the time, I will moderate this panel session. And we'll start with Dr. Marion. Dr. Marion, as a private sector player and from the private sector perspective, what challenges are you facing, or have you faced, is the industry facing while using these corridors? We have seen the initiatives, I've seen the good presentation and statistics, but as a player on a day-to-day basis, what issues are you really seeing that needs to be flagged or highlighted for the sector players, by the sector players, that these corridor authorities, as well as policymakers like and facilitators like EAC Secretariat and the EABC should know, so to take notes and take forward?
Thank you so much. And I apologize, I've been away for almost a year without participating in the trade facilitation discussions. But I'm happy to be back, and I won't waste time in going for the challenges. I will just thank the corridors, the secretariats, for being on top of their game. For a long time, they've existed for a very long time, and we have oftentimes in the maybe very distant past been very, very we have criticized them and their meaningfulness or impactfulness on developing our corridors. So today, listening in, and I listened to each presentation, and in detail, I never left. I'm so excited that you've come up with the challenges, you've come up with the solutions, you've come up with the recommendations. So I would be repeating myself like the challenges we have, of course, is the high cost of doing business on the corridor, and that is due to one of the things, major things, is a lack of export. It's always the one that is always glaring. It's poor infrastructure and support facilities, and I see they are being looked into. Lack of multimodal transport. It's the modes of transport are available, but how efficient or effective are they being used? However, the one I can address myself to is the low appreciation of trade facilitation importance to country and regional development by law, policy, and regulation enforcement agencies. That's the one I will bring out that the corridors didn't bring out. Our trade facilitation agencies, public ones, meaning governments, they don't look at things holistically and they work and look into silos. They work to fulfill my agency mandate without looking at the development of the country or of the region. So this is one of the biggest challenges we face apart from infrastructure and raw exports. And we need to educate our people who are enforcing the laws and the regulations. For example, to know that if you are delaying a process, you are delaying revenue collection or denying revenue collection actually, and therefore you are hindering the development of the nation. So happy to have heard that the corridors brought out most of what I would have brought out. Thank you. And if I continue into what would be our recommendations, it has also been brought out, and the harmonization of policies and regulations is key. Simplifying and making all processes in the supply chain efficient, and capacity building for both the public and the private sector involved and using the corridors. When it comes to that, I would say that I believe a country's economy is as good and strong and developed as their private sector. Our private sector, us ourselves, we have let ourselves down because we do not match. EABC is doing a tremendous job, and but the rest of the business community approaching the lawmakers, the law enforcement agencies, approaching them with confidence, well-researched information and recommendations. We tend to complain, we don't offer solutions. So my role as Goodwill Ambassador for EABC, what I have done more for EABC is advocate for public-private dialogue. How we work together, how we must work together. I have said it for many years, formally relating with the public sector in policy development, in policy implementation, monitoring, in focused and holistic look at developing the countries. Let's not even talk about the corridors will definitely develop the countries, but how do we develop the countries? For example, we know that there is low exports and it keeps our costs of trade very, very high. What deliberate efforts have we put in place to identify what can be exported and where it can be exported and efficiently through an efficient supply chain? My last recommendation, I hope the EABC is still with us, is we've talked about EABC, I've said is doing a very good job. However, are the private sector associations that belong to EABC, are they doing very well? Are they doing what they should do? And I would recommend that and I have been recommending actually that we need to separate business people from association secretariats, and association secretariats run the businesses of the association, which is advocacy, etc., professionally and effectively. And unless we build these strong secretariats that are independent and not doing business, and empower them to run with the agenda. For us, the business people, we should be coming up with strategic plans. What do we want? How can we grow the economy? How can we grow the corridors? And then the work of research and advocacy, we leave it with the Secretariat. So we need to build strong public-private dialogue through associations, professional bodies that can run and advise. We should be advising. We should know that public sector does not do business. Therefore, they do not know business. They do not know the corridor, for example. Are we advising or recommending right? And do we have a formal and accepted structure through which we can make our recommendations known and accepted. I think that's what I would contribute today to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marian. I see a hand. I can see a hand from, is the CEO? Do you want to
Yes.
react? Thank you, sir.
Yes, I wanted to really appreciate and commend our goodwill ambassador, Dr. Marian, in terms of the strengthening the PPPs, and how private sector voice can be integrated in the corridor performance. So I want to assure her that we are on the top of the game. We are going to do that, and the outcome of this webinar, it is deliberate. That's why we invited the Acting Secretary General to be there. We want that they feed into the Council of Minister decisions. So I can assure you the recommendation will inform the Council of Minister decision, and I really take a note of the engaging national private sector PEX organization. Last week we had a board meeting, board retreat in Zanzibar, and also the board is very clear that we need to, it shouldn't be EABC taking the show, but we need to enhance the capacity of our national APEX organization across the region. So I think these are the key pillars for the EABC. These are the key pillars of our region. And really, when you look at what the corridor have presented, the key beneficiary should be the private sector. Private sector should be on the driving seat, should understand this project, but very few understands what the corridor are doing. That's why I'm happy all the corridors have able presented very well, but we need to take it further and engage the private sector on a number of initiatives and the projects that have been highlighted. So I wanted to give you a comfort, give you assurance that EABC, we are going to drive that. We are going to change the way we've been working. Asanteni sana.
Thank you. It's really exciting the way the corridors authorities have come up with the agenda. EABC, which is also has a very strong agenda and advocacy, if you empower those, you will go to the apex bodies in each country, but also ensure that the apex bodies go to their other associations to empower them to know what they want, what they need, and to know how to get it also. So we have to, the point here is, first of all, we should relate with the corridors and the governments formally. Secondly, we should empower the secretariats of associations, the different sectors of the economy associations, to know what they want and how to get it, and be confident about the results once government goes out of their way and grants what they ask for. Thank you so much. We really look forward.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marian, for providing that guidance, really formal engagement with sector associations, and even extending these services and the information to their respective members is very key, so they know what they want and how to get what they want. Thank you so much for that insight, and we always really build on your guidance in this sector. Maybe I will ask Mr. Dennis. You've really, the Secretariat, the authority has, the Northern Corridor Transit Transport Authority has done a lot, invested a lot, and with huge plans ahead. My question is, what have been the best lessons learned that probably, as you craft out most of these projects and interventions, what are those lessons that you've learned that probably you could share with us? Like, how can the region address these challenges that you highlighted yourself, and what support probably would you look at to ensure that these lessons learned are put into action? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Geoffrey. So to start with the lessons, one is, as Daktari has just presented, there is need for private sector to be fully involved. I think about 2-3 years back, there's a time we did our work plans and got them approved by our policy organs. Then when we engaged the private sector, they were very categorical that you want to do these as priorities, but in whose interest are you doing these activities? So there had been a gap in terms of engaging private sector, consulting them, and getting to appreciate their priorities from their perspective. So one key lesson for us is, one, private sector must be on board, and the priorities of the corridor should be priorities of the private sector, both in terms of investments in hard infrastructure as well as investments in soft projects. Then secondly, ensuring very high levels of efficiency, because we must be competitive, whatever the case. People or private investors especially are looking at how it is done everywhere else. You saw the presentation by the Shippers Council looking at the targets of, say, 1 day, as opposed to where we are 6 days or 8 days. How do we close that gap so that we match international standards? So investing in efficiency, investing in ICT, so as to ensure that we provide a level of service that is acceptable, that is appreciated, and that keeps us competitive, not just as a corridor, but the region as a whole. Then another key lesson for us was, how do we add value and ensure that the corridor is used better or even more? We looked at outbound traffic from Mombasa going out to the rest of the region, fully loaded containers. Then when you look at the backhaul, empty containers, almost 100%. So what is it that we can do to intervene? And that's when we got the recommendations again from the key stakeholders within the corridor, that we need to support producers to be able to produce for export. And if it is producing for export, it's not just about the numbers or the quantities, it's about the quality of production, right from the input stage all the way. So we must understand the value chains, we must understand the inputs or investments required at each stage, and see how to mobilize that support or intervention all the way to the end, where we'll then see outputs coming, we'll see exports growing, and we'll see value added to the produce that we currently have. So I think for us, those are the 3 main lessons I can pick for now. And of course, cross-cutting use of technology at every stage or in every sector, And in terms of support, we have mobilized partners to help us across all these projects and programs that we have. And we are happy to report that UNIDO is helping us looking at investments in industrial infrastructure, the zones, the industrial parks, the value addition, the value chains identification, among others. We are working closely with JICA, with the World Bank, looking at improving infrastructure, developing a comprehensive corridor master plan that will identify the investment priorities, cost the different projects that are required, and also design the kinds of investments that are required to make us achieve these investments. And all this through holistic planning. So I think this is what we are doing, and I want to believe that we are making a difference. We have very clear structures for stakeholder engagement. The Public-Private Partnership Stakeholders Committee that I mentioned, run by the private sector, and the chairperson is rotational across the 6 countries. The chairperson goes around meeting private sector associations in each country, picking the issues, and immediately meeting with government agencies in that country or in each country to discuss the issues raised by the private sector, assign responsibilities to the different agencies in the public sector to address those issues. And then annually we meet and look at progress. So that's the model we are using, and I want to believe that it is working as we also continue to innovate and improve on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dennis. A lot of work done, and thank you for sharing those. Quite a good master plan that you have ahead, and we really look forward to seeing more of this and your innovations, as you're mentioning, to ensure that the Northern Corridor really serves its able purpose. Maybe I will phrase the same question to the Central Corridor. Quickly, probably, what are the best ideas you can put forward in terms of lessons you've learned while you engage the stakeholders, mobilize for this infrastructure, capacity building, etc.? What are those best ideas that you can put across that could share with us that to ensure that the Central Corridor is one of the best performing corridor for the users? Over to you, Mr. Emmanuel.
Yeah, thank you very much, Geoffrey. I think we need to listen to the people that we serve. We need to listen to the people that you serve, the private sector, the public sector, as well as the investors, you know. For us in the corridor, we take it as a bottom up. We normally have meetings from the stakeholders meetings. We hold several of them. And the reason we invite them to our meetings, you know, is to listen to them. First of all, we give them feedback on what we do. We present to them the status of the operations of the corridor, but we also mobilize, you know, their thoughts, you know, to direct our interventions. Basically, our strategy is derived from the priorities of our members, the priorities of the private sector, the priorities of the public sector. And we've developed a very good strategy that actually looks to impact the communities and the countries and the member states. We want to have a corridor that, you know, increases the socio-economic welfare of the communities that is served by the corridor. And we do that by contributing to, you know, to market access along the corridor. So basically, we are investing in connectivity and integration of the Central Corridor. And you can't integrate the corridor if you don't invest in the inland waterways, transportation, in the railway networks, and in road networks. So for us, what we do, we put in our own resources, we mobilize resources, but also use our platform for the member states to engage, you know, to engage and develop projects together. and also developing feasibility studies and mobilizing investments. So that's how we, we see the progress being made in the SGR construction. By the way, if the lot 1 and lot 2 have been completed almost 99%. That is from Dar es Salaam, Morogoro, and Dodoma. All those sections have been completed, and the testing is already underway. And we are launching trains in July this year. We are launching passenger trains first, and freight trains will start as soon as possible. And we're also investing in enhancing the competitiveness and the resilience of the Central Corridor. We want to have a corridor that is competitive, but also resilient. And here we are looking at investing in logistics operations and services. That's why we are investing in renovation of the rail wagons, and also the roads as well. We invest in the ports. I told you about the ports that we are working on, like Kalemi, Kalondo, and Kigoma, but also in Lake Victoria. We are investing in Portobello, because we are linking SGR to Lake Victoria, but Uganda has no capacity to offload those containers from the new SGR, because the SGR carries containers. So we are investing directly into that port. We are doing the studies. We'll be doing the studies in the next month, I think, to do the new designs for the container terminal as well, to be able to provide the competitiveness that is required. Of course, we do trade facilitation as well. We do the Public Transport Observatory. We track the performance of the key transport indicators and trade indicators. And that helps us to give us the required data to engage productively with the public sector, the implementers, the policymakers, to be able to remedy, these challenges that come up. The Port of Dar es Salaam, it has been undergoing a lot of development. You see a lot of challenges, but has also undergone a lot of development. World Bank provided funding, and the port has been expanded. The channels have been expanded, and the depth as well. It is able to receive huge ships from overseas. And because of the capacity that is being constrained right now, 4 berths are being, earmarked for construction. That is which berth 12, 13, 14, and 15. These are going to be built in order to increase the capacity of the port. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Emmanuel. Maybe to piggyback on the logistics investment that you're mentioning. I think we seem to depend, the region seems to depend on international shipping lines. And this has been manifested, for example, the effect in the Suez Canal issue in 2021, as well as the Ukrainian war. We've seen such downturns, and this has affected a lot on the leaf containers that our shippers depend on. My question would be, for example, are you, in terms of creating efficiency and the effectiveness of the corridor, are you also planning to facilitate such private sector investments that probably could have homegrown solutions and not necessarily depending on the north-south already established global shipping lines? I don't know whether
you mean buying ships?
Yeah, well, are there, for example, investment opportunities for support to companies that probably would have investing in these containers, etc., so that we really don't depend on other containers from other already established companies?
Yeah, if there is anybody that comes up with a proposal, we are ready to listen. Of course, for us as a corridor, we can't invest in containers. But of course, if there's a private sector that is willing to invest, we are ready. We are ready to support them. If you have anybody, let them come and see us.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah, because for us, we use our platform as a platform of engagement between member states For example, for cross-border regional projects, we use our platform to bring them together. We facilitate them with their own resources to agree, sign MOUs, develop the project together, but also bring the private sector, into discussion with the public sector. I'll give you an example. We have investors, private sector investors we brought in to invest in mines in Congo, but also in roads linking those mines to the ports. We are the one who mobilized those investors and put them in contact with the government. An agreement has already been signed. And the same investors will also invest in Kalemi Port, developing Kalemi Port as well. So you can see that our platform doesn't support just the public sector, but also the private sector as well. And in our board of directors, the way it is constituted, it has permanent secretaries from the Ministries of Infrastructure, but also representatives of the private sector from each member state. So which means even the business that is being discussed within the board has a private sector view. They're able to question, they're able to propose. So that's why, our interventions comes up to support, what the private sector needs as well. We are business oriented.
Thank you, Mr. Manuel, and we'll definitely engage you further on this. You're really doing a great job, and thank you so much. Maybe to Pauline, you represent a huge number of sector players. The council represents a huge number, but maybe one question to you is, and I know this also you mentioned about it, the role of the private sector in ensuring that most of these challenges that we highlighted, most of which are policymakers facing, but in your perspective, how should we as private sector be partakers to solutions that our region is facing, both corridors are facing? What are the what is the actual role of us as a private sector in ensuring that we are partakers and partners in advancing solutions to these challenges?
Thank you very much. I would say that as the private sector, we need to be live to the challenges and opportunities that are currently available to offer solutions to what we face. And I would say that one of the things that as private sector we need to do is to look for the available public-private partnership opportunities and make sure that we are taking advantage of these opportunities, as well as there's need to ensure that there's a coordination and a cooperation among the private sector entities and even roping in the public sector. You'll be, as from the presenters, you've seen that Central Corridor is doing a project on green freight, as well as the Northern Corridor is doing a project on green freight. But where is the coordination part of it? I believe that if we coordinate and drive one agenda, we achieve more rather than the different stakeholders doing separate agendas, and thus there's need for a lot of cooperation between stakeholders and coordination into addressing some of these challenges that we face. And as Marianne said, there's need also to build the capacity of the private sector entities into tapping into some of these opportunities and ensuring that they maximize the value of services that they are giving, and holding government also accountable for some of the challenges that they cause when they not probably facilitate trade. So there's need for a lot of building the capacity of the private sector into taking advantage and ensure that trade facilitation is actually arrived at. Yeah, that is what I would say after now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pauline. That's really great asks that you've advanced, and I think we as EABC we have listened, and of course we'll engage further on that. Maybe turning to the EAC Secretariat, having listened to all this, and from where you sit, how is the EAC Secretariat addressing these issues, especially the backhaul or the cabotage, in addressing barriers to transport or logistics in the EAC? Is there any work that you're doing to address the cabotage issues? And maybe just for you to answer all the questions, we continue to see challenges related to port inefficiencies at NTBs along the borders and transport routes. What is the EAC Secretariat doing to impose retributive measures on those that bring such or impose such issues? And what mechanism is there really to address the issues real time and long term? And also maybe number three, how does the EAC region compare with other RECs in terms of hard and soft structures as we see trade under the FCFT has started, meaning that really our REC must be on top of the game? How do we compare, and what are we doing to ensure that our REC is more trade friendly and well connected to the rest of the continents? Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. Yes, I've heard from the other members on the panel, and I think they have done quite some good discussion on the physical infrastructure. I think let me talk about the soft infrastructure. Yes, we have technical working groups which are discussing from time to time they are reviewing the processes to ensure that there are no challenges. Yeah, we have interconnected the systems, but we still have some challenges related to times in downtimes which happen. And basically, there are two. I want to talk about agencies. The substantial work in the interconnectivity of systems has been between ports and the customs. However, I've taken note that the regulatory agencies, as Dr. Marian said, and most of them, they haven't yet joined the interconnectivity. So, when the goods get stuck at a particular clearance point, all the delays are attributed to customs, which is not true. There's time also that's taken by other agencies. Now, for example, for standards, as a region, they are developing standards, such regional standards, but also they're encouraging what they call national equivalent standards, such that when goods arrive with a certificate of conformity, when they arrive with a certificate of conformity, the certificate of sorry, I think someone is talking about when so I think someone should maybe meet. When what we are saying that when goods arrive with a certificate of conformity issued by another partner state, those certificates should be taken and recognized. However, even where there's need to maybe test or confirm conformity, you see there are three things in that process. One is picking a sample, the actual testing, and transmitting the results back. So what we are trying to encourage is, you see, we cannot control or reduce the time taken to undertake a scientific maybe testing of a particular item. But what we are talking about is that, for example, the communication, for example, communicating results back to customs should be done electronically instead of waiting for hard copies. Now, that one can also help in reducing the time taken by the regulatory agencies. Now, the others, for example, if there are security interventions, and some of them, if we feel that maybe they are not necessary, we are engaging. There's a forum for interagencies. And on the other hand is that there are also other agencies, for example, in charge of way bridges. You see they have really improved. When you compare 10 years ago, because when you carried out a timely study, we notified the agencies, plus maybe other studies that have been taken by corridors. We notified these agencies that they need to improve on the technology. And you see, like, I don't know whether it was Central Corridor presenter, they showed that now the weighbridge, how they call it, adherence to the weights is around 98%. And when you go to these weighbridges, you find that majority of the trucks just pass when they are checked by the roadside, that weigh in motion machine. So on the soft side, the ESC is coordinating all measures aimed at making sure that the processes are faster. Then, in addition with what my fellow panelists have already mentioned on what is being done on the physical infrastructure, improving the landing points, like they have just mentioned that they're improving, they're working on, say, portable, on container, provision of container lifters. So this is what the ESC is doing in conjunction with the other agencies. Now, as far as the ESC REC is concerned, I think ESC is doing very well in terms of one, apart from infrastructure, but as I mentioned, in coordinating the processes along the corridors between the different agencies. So we are not yet perfect, that's what I can say. But when you compare ESC with other RECs, I think ESC is a bit at a higher level than others. So, but this doesn't mean that we don't really need to improve and keep monitoring. So, and on the NTBs, we have an NTB monitoring team. We engage in regular meetings to ensure that these NTBs are addressed. You know, they arise from different, because of different reasons. Some of them arise because of rules of origin. Some goods are denied access in other markets. Others maybe are of security nature. So we have a forum which monitors the NTBs, and from time to time they are addressed. Though it is at times a tedious task. It's like flattening a balloon. You flatten one side, the other, and manages. But we keep managing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those good inputs and the responses to what EIC Secretariat is doing. We look forward to more engagement to ensure that those issues are streamlined. I see a hand from Mr. Thomas Muto. If you just open your mic and
yes, yeah. Thank you. This is Thomas Muto from Juba, South Sudan. I'm actually working for Central Equatorial Business Union. Apology, I joined the presentation quite late, and most of the starting presentations I have not actually attended, but I am interested to ask on. There was a question asked to Central Corridor, and I wanted to add on this that one, I have not got the background of Central Corridor, whether my country South Sudan is part of it, and on that basis, I'd wanted to know how will a private sector in South Sudan benefit from from the services that the Central Corridor offers. For example, in terms of linkage with potential investors who are ready to invest in a private sector projects that are business oriented. So this is what I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Emmanuel, do you want to respond to this before Marion comes in?
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. Southern Sudan is not part of the Central Corridor, but we are looking forward to, for Southern Sudan to apply to join the membership of the Central Corridor. Of course, that doesn't mean that there is no cargo going through the port of Dar es Salaam heading to Juba. I think we have a lot of cargo, especially for the World Food Program, that goes through the port of Dar es Salaam. So in terms of, when you're not a member, when a country is not a member of the Central Corridor, we are constrained in terms of, as a secretariat, engaging them directly. But if there is anybody interested, I think we can direct them. But I think it is up to the private sector to talk to the country. If they want to join the Central Corridor, they can initiate, they can send us a letter, they can write to us, and then we can initiate the process. It is not easy for us to engage, a member state that is not part of the Central Corridor. But if there is a need, I think we can do that.
Thank you, Mr. Emmanuel. Dr. Marian, please, over to you for your question.
Thank you. Sorry to come back, but I think I touched a bit on one recommendation that is a low-hanging fruit that could improve our corridor performance, and didn't emphasize it a lot. The public sector needs to say the customs agencies, when they talked about the Bureau of Standards, we need to develop policies and KPIs for the staff that are foolproof, would I say, because some of them are left gaping, and all they do is encourage corruption. And we don't know why, for example, one person would take, or people in customs which I work with most, and I keep disturbing the commission and the commissioner general. I tell them, if your staff can't clear, then you do the clearing. Why it takes so long to take decisions? And you find that the key performance indicators for the staff are actually giving them more room to question, to query entries. And they said the more entries you query, the more, the better you are assessed in your performance. Instead of saying the more entries you pass, the better you are rated in your performance. So these, and then there are times they tell you we can't take that decision. I'm still consulting. I'm consulting a committee now. I have to consult another colleague now. Things like that. Those are very low-hanging fruits that what somebody called the software that we can take advantage of is to, we can't say you put people of integrity in places, but we can say that people can be motivated, people can be empowered to take decisions, be given confidence, be trained perhaps if they don't have the knowledge, and use more the technology than the people to, like, we have those channels we pass through in customs. So what I wanted to emphasize that, and the the ED had asked me to talk about capacity building for our trade facilitators in the private sector, but I can't talk about them without talking about the public sector ones. We need to motivate them, we need to give them confidence, we need to empower them with knowledge, and I don't know whether they do enough training or they need coaching, they need mentoring, we don't understand, but they are so slow in some instances, and that delays, that makes the whole chain inefficient. So when it comes to the private sector ED, what we have done everything possible to build capacity for our operators. You know, the practicing certificate for freight forwarders, you know, the codes of conduct, you know, we have put everything that the logisticians need. They have access to it and they have learned, but what remains is what I talked about: empowering the secretariats, building associations to have strong secretariats, which we are looking up to you to help us do through our apex bodies. I thank you so much. And
thank you so much, Dr. Miriam. Really, it's good to have a level of accountability, and those KPIs, I think, will actually drive that. I see someone called Natasha. Natasha, would you just flag your question or comments? Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Kamanzi. So I'm a student from the US, majoring.
We cannot hear you. If you could just raise your voice, we cannot hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and thank you for the amazing work that the rest of the team is doing. So my name is Natasha Kamanji, and I'm a student in the US majoring in mathematics. I had a question, and I'm not sure if I'm addressing it to the right person, but my question is to Mr. Dennis from the Northern Corridor. So considering what has been happening in different parts of the world, like a lot of political instability is going on. And my biggest concern and question to ask is, what are the lessons that have you guys learned from the current global and regional wars that are going on in crisis, and in terms of like the public and the inter-country public transport that is going on, and let's say like in the transportation pipeline. So in case something happens in this integration in the member countries and this happens to be a political instability, what are the measures being put there to solve these issues?
Not sure who you're addressing this question to, but probably any.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I had. Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, I think I had Natasha indicating that
Great.
she wanted me to respond to that.
Oh, great. Thanks, Dennis. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so if you allow me very quickly, we appreciate the political environments, especially externally, beyond the region, that is on the continent, as well as globally. And this usually has a tendency to destabilize the logistics value chain. Okay, so shipping and logistics is easily disrupted. We saw it also during the COVID-19 period, and it also happens whenever there are issues in politics or in leadership or in governance in different countries. A good example is the war in Russia, Ukraine, looking at how it affected the imports of our cereals, for example. Now, one of the major lessons we have picked from this is we need to empower ourselves locally. We need to promote production locally. We also need to invest in large-scale infrastructure as well as facilities that can support maritime transport. And I want to make reference to one of the recent conferences that we held late last year in partnership with the Kenya Maritime Authority and the Ports Management Association for East and Southern Africa. It was the African Maritime Cabotage and Blue Economy Conference. The objective was, how do we look at development of facilities to enable our private investors in this region to build ships, okay, build containers, repair vessels, and so on and so forth. And I think this is something also Geoffrey had asked earlier. And one of the things we noted was we need a regulatory framework that enables these kinds of investments. We need incentives for private sector to be able to invest in such facilities. We need to be able to expand opportunities for industrial investments that can help us invest in such facilities as well as auxiliary industries around such within industrial parks and special economic zones. The second question was, how do we finance such investments? Again, we looked at models in Nigeria, in India. So Nigeria has the Cabotage Vessel Financing Fund. India has a shipbuilding financial assistance policy. All these are aimed at enabling private sector to access resources at concessional rates to be able to make such investments, where you need $1 billion to put up very serious investments in vessels and other infrastructure facilities. So these are the things we are discussing, looking at self-empowerment and building the region to be at a level where it can be insulated from negative political externalities, and also looking at equipping ourselves to be able to grow with or without external support. So I think that is what I will say for now. I hope it responds to your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dennis. Quite articulate on that, and hope, Natasha, you answered. There's a hand from Abera. Abera, please go ahead. Then we have 10 minutes to close this session, and please, Abera, if you can be as brief as you can be. Thank you. Abera, I see your hands. If you're speaking, you're muted. We can't hear you. It looks
Can
like
you hear
Abera.
me? Yes,
yeah,
yes.
We can hear you. Please, yeah, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm Abera from Ethiopia. My question is a bit similar to the Southern Sudanese colleague question. Maybe I'm not sure. I have learned from a notice from Kenya that Ethiopia is a part of East African community. Is that true or not? If it is not true, how we could benefit as a private business company?
Okay. Could we get a response from Mr. Dennis? Hello, Mr. Abera, you're asking whether how can you access benefits provided by who?
East African community.
Yeah. Mr. Jonathan, are you on the line to respond to this? Mr. Jonathan.
Maybe Geoffrey, let me respond to that question by Abera.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the question is that Ethiopia is not a member, is not a member of both Central and Northern Corridor.
Yeah.
But there are plans for Ethiopia to join the EAC. Once Ethiopia joins, it's going to enjoy the benefit. The private sector in Ethiopia is going to enjoy the benefits of the EAC, but also the benefits of the corridors. And indeed, it is exciting to see that the admission of Ethiopia to EAC is pushed by the private sector, and that is the way to go. These corridors, the integration should be a private sector led. So I'm happy that Abera, as Dennis mentioned, I think we need to raise the voice of the private sector. And recently, I participated in the discussion with the World Bank. They are trying to bring. They are trying to form what they call IGAD Private Sector Business Council. And once that council is formed, it's going to work closely with the ABC in terms of how we can build the synergies, complementarities, and ensure that the private sector in Ethiopia, because the interest has been already expressed, to ensure that the private sector in Ethiopia benefits from EAC integration. And I think Jonathan mentioned that EAC is the fastest growing regional community, and the growth of EAC is driven primarily by the private sector because we have a very strong unified voice. We work together and we address issues that impede investment as well as trade. So I wanted just to respond to that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, CEO. I recorded a few questions from participants. I think there are two questions. One question from Waturi Matu, and this was, I think, a question that was addressed to the DSG, and she was asking which OSBPs have installed smart gates. I'm wondering whether Jonathan is still here, because this was mentioned by the DSG in her opening remarks. And her other question was to Pauline. The sea freight rates shared are from which originating ports? And the second question to Pauline is, hi Pauline, would you share on transport from Nairobi to Europe via sea freight? Probably this, I don't know whether it's can be responded to quickly.
Thank you. The freight costs that I shared were from China, specifically the port of Shanghai, from China to Mombasa, and then from China to the port of Dar es Salaam. And in terms of whether I could share the rates from Nairobi to Europe via sea freight, we don't have a comprehensive rate. Rather, there's a study on sea freight done by the Embassy of Netherlands, and it breaks down the cost. And this is in relation to agricultural products, like some avocado and flowers as the specific products, and it breaks the cost to inland cost from either Nairobi to Mombasa should be around US dollars 3,000. Then the sea freight all the way to Rotterdam, it's 4,600. There's a clearance cost of 441 USD, and also consolidation cost of 1,680, bringing the cost of sea freight from Nairobi to, for example, Rotterdam to around 9,700 USD for the products like avocado.
Thank you. Maybe it's also it's an opportunity to have this data, and probably we shall engage you further on having the statistics and the data, ensure that we also inform our members on this. Thank you so much, Pauline. Much appreciated. I think we have come to an end. We have 1 minute to end the webinar as per the program, but I invite the CEO to give a wrap up as well as a key takeaways from this webinar. Karibu sana, Mr. Idi.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Moderator Geoffrey. And I want really to thank all the eminent speakers. Start with the opening remarks by the acting Secretary General of ESC and the staff of ESC, especially Jonathan, who has also shared the insight and highlighted the intervention that are being pursued by the ESC to make the region competitive. I want to thank all the corridor authority officials, Dennis, Manuel, Pauline from the Shippers Council, again for doing an excellent presentation in terms of enlightening us where we stand in terms of time, costs, complexities, and the competitiveness of the region. And I think that on our side at the ABC, we are taking this as very important, and we're going to ensure that through the Shippers Council, we develop performance benchmarks or performance indicators with regard to the corridor performance, and also look into the trade facilitation agents. So from the discussion and the presentation, I've noted down 10 key recommendations that are emerging from this webinar, and which we are going to submit to the Secretary General for consideration, and also inform the Council of Ministers. One is to involve the private sector in the entire planning and implementation of inter-corridor development projects. And I think our goodwill ambassador emphasized that private sector should be an integral part in the planning process. We should provide input in the planning process. We need to enhance, the second one is need to enhance our public-private partnership. It is already there, the framework is there, but we need to enhance it further and ensure that we achieve a win-win situation. There is a need to produce for export to address backhaul issues. I think Paulina mentioned it, and I think I'm happy from both corridors, from the presentation by Dennis and Emmanuel. They highlighted the promotion of regional value chain, especially the regional value chain where the region has comparative and competitive advantage. So we need to align and think about corridor from a traditional or conventional way, where the corridors were perceived as a transport corridor, but to align the corridor to value chain. So I'm happy all the corridor are synchronized in terms of the promoting the regional value chain, so that we have a backhaul cargo, and that is going to reduce high cost of imports as well as exports. The first one was to adopt technology to create corridor efficiency. And I think we have all agreed that even the current reduction in terms of time and cost is engineered by the technology, but we can do further. Invest in soft and hard infrastructure. I think the port of Dar es Salaam, from the presentation of Emmanuel, and also from the complex by the importers, exporters, the current capacity of the port Dar is not sufficient to handle the growing volume of trade, which is exciting, and I think it's very important. We encourage the Dubai world that is taking over the port to do more investment and expand the berth. Build and strengthen BMOs and sectors association to able represent the interests of private sector. That is number 6. Number 7, address NTBs and TBTs. And I think good solutions and proposals have been provided, and we must have a monitoring system to address NTBs and TBTs. Number 8, need to address inefficiency by trade facilitation agents. and avoid duplication of duties, roles, and responsibilities. And I think that is the biggest, that is the elephant in the room. There is a lot of duplication, but there is also a lot of silos among trade facilitation agency. We need to ensure that they are up to the speed. Then the last one is facilitate inter-agency facilitation agency cooperation. And finally, we need to develop, EABC should work with corridor, with the two corridors to develop performance indicators and develop a robust monitoring framework. I think that's the call to myself and others. Otherwise, I want to record my appreciation and thank all speakers. And I want to thank our goodwill ambassador, Dr. Marian, for continuing to support the entire region in terms of understanding transport and logistics issues. Asanteni sana. God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Edie, and thank you everyone for making time. Thank you our panelists, speakers, Secretariat, the both corridors, the Shippers Council, and everyone, and participants. We recorded over 80 participants, and we look forward to engaging with you further. We have recorded email addresses, and we're going to share all the PowerPoint presentations that have been presented today. Thank you so much. On behalf of EABC, I'm Jeffrey Kamanzi, and hope to see you and engage with you further. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye and blessings.
Thank you, Dr. Mary.
Blessings, blessings, everyone. Our board director, Wagogo, thanks also for the support.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Santeni, bye.